Sports Talk here on Atlantic Television Network. On this edition of the program, Nigeria's para stars qualify for Paris Olympic Games. And coming in from the wall of tennis, it's been an exciting drop. Meanwhile, Rivers Hoopers pitch tents against Douanes of Senegal. Details of this and many more will be yours when we return from the break. Stay with us.
Telling him not to counterpunch. Oh!
Back, Sports Talk, and I have Kingsley Manuel.
Thank you very much for having me here. Very happy to be here.
Well, let's start from the road race taking place. Will take place in Opepe. It's a 10-kilometer race, and Daniel Ebeyo says his dream of becoming the first man to successfully defend an Opepe 10-kilometer race title has been derailed by injury. What sad situation?
Very sad situation and a disappointing one. I think he's been looking forward to come defend this one. He's a Kenyan, and of course we know injury actually hindered him at this point in time. He was actually training for this particular one before he sustained this particular injury, and the man, of course, having the spirit of sportsmanship, is actually giving kudos to those that will be participating in this particular edition to go all the way to get it. And he's also lamenting because of his inability to be the first man to break the 28 minutes at the race after setting 28.28 seconds in 2023. So last time, I think, was a very huge one for him, and we look forward to see how far he'll be able to go in terms of recovery. We'll hope for the best for him. Maybe in the next edition we'll be able to see him come as well, to represent Kenya at this point in time. But for me, I think it's a disappointing one that he won't be in the 24th edition of the Opepe race.
Very sad, and we just hope that the doctors and the medics will do everything possible to ensuring that he bounces back and return to Opepe in the very near future. Let's look at charity news now. The duel of Marian Eniola Bolaji and Jeremiah Chigozie have qualified for the Paris 2024 Paralympic Games coming up from the 28th of August to the 8th of September this year. The para stars have never disappointed.
Never. And for me, I think it's a very huge one at this point in time for what was saying, seeing the likes of Bolaji and Chigozie, qualifying for the Olympics. This is what we expect. This is what we tend to see at this point in time. I think the Badminton Federation under Francis Obi has really gotten momentum, so far in the country since Francis Obi took over the affairs, for the federation. And we're seeing, talent, being churned out from the federation. We're seeing stars, of course, putting up impressive performance. I think we must give it up to, Francis Obi, the president of the federation, for what he's been able to do so far. And for Bolaji and Chigozie, I think for me it's a good one for them to go down to the Paris Olympic and be able to represent, Nigeria this time around. Seeing Nigeria participating in the badminton event at the Paris Olympic will be a very huge one at this point in time. And at this point, Francis Obi is calling on supporters, to come give them support ahead of the Paris Olympic game, because at this point in time, the Badminton Federation is not that buoyant, to say maybe they might be able to sponsor the athlete. We understand the Sport Ministry, of course, will weigh in terms of giving them the needed support, but accruing more sponsorship, of course, will help them, go a long way, and as well help them to give these athletes, or these badminton players the best of preparation, as well the best of welfare down there in France. So for me, it's a good one that these two players, they've qualified
at the Olympic Games in just about a few weeks from now. But Bolaji herself is ranked number 5 in the world, and that looks like a very good ranking of an African player going to the Olympic Games.
Yeah, being ranked 5 among the top 10, players, I think for me is a very huge one, for Bolaji. She's been very fantastic, over time for what we've seen so far, putting up, some impressive performance, at this point in time. Has been an impressive one, and we're all looking forward to see, Bolaji, putting up this same momentum down there at the Paris Olympic game, because at the Paris Olympic game, she's going to be competing with other players, from other, countries, and That's to show that she really have to step up again, because it might not be business as usual down there. And I think for me, she's done a lot, for herself. We hope she'll be able to replicate and as well take far of this performance down there at the Olympic Games.
Stars, no doubt, will raise the flag of Nigeria at the forthcoming Olympic Games. Talking about the Olympic Games coming up in Paris reminds me of a novelty that will take place during the Olympic Games, and that's for the first time in the history of the Olympic and Paralympic Games. The Paris 2024 Olympic Village will include a nursery, a space for athletes' parents to spend time with their babies and young children during the game. This is a novelty in the history of Olympic Games.
Yeah, for me, I think it's a cheering to the games, of course.
Young parents for that matter.
Young parents, will be coming to the Olympic Games with their babies, and they actually need a space, to be able to take care of their baby, because some of them, their babies, of course, will not want to, of course, maybe stay away from them. They always want to maybe stay close to the parents, and will understand what it means, understand the synergy between the child, and the mother, or a child, and the father at this point in time. So I think it's a good one. The organizers have been able to create this particular one to make sure that, athletes do not struggle when it has to do with their babies, at this point in time. So it will go a long way in helping these athletes, of course, to prepare themselves mentally, emotionally, because in the situation whereby you're going for a particular game and you're thinking, maybe your baby is somewhere and all of that, it might actually bring, emotional destabilization, and you might not be able to do well. So I think the organizers are doing everything they can to make sure that this athlete, they are stable emotionally and mentally, going to the game, going into their various events when the Olympic Games kicks off.
Babies will not suffer while their parents compete at the Olympic Games, because a nursery has been provided at the Olympic Village for kids, and of course they have attention from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Daily. This is, for me, a very cheering one for parent athletes at the Olympic Games coming up in Paris. Meanwhile, we'll bring you some basketball story now. And Bendel Dynamos of Benin only yesterday lost Imo Grasshoppers 33-17 as they ran into some difficult situation. This is in handball, really. The handball Premier League here in Nigeria continues with this result. The team from Owerri is known for some excellent performances here in the Premier League.
Yeah, an impressive outing for the Owerri side. 33-17 ended in that particular encounter with a very huge margin we saw for Bendel Dynamos, at this point in time. They've actually gotten a very abysmal performance, talking about Bendel Dynamos. They're actually the host state, and everyone thought, of course, they are going to actually capitalize on that particular one. But from what we've seen at this point in time, it has not been that rosy for them. They were actually been outclassed in that game. 33-17 was a very huge margin, a very huge loss, of course, for them. We hope to see how far, of course, they'll be able to go this time around in the handball Premier League down here in Nigeria.
Meanwhile, talking about handball performances in the Premier League here in Nigeria, Rivers Queens beat Plateau Peacock 24-22 in a keenly contested tie. Really, really keen.
Yeah, a very impressive victory, back-to-back victory now for Rivers Queen. And I think for me, they've been very, very fantastic, taking a look at how they started the Basketball Premier League this time around. I think for what we've seen so far, it's been a better preparation from them down here. I think the FA here has been, FA in Rivers State, of course, has been able to look at, the handball league down here, handball team down here in Nigeria, and been able to give them that support. I think they've been fantastic. They won their last game, and now they're winning this particular one as well. With a very high margin, you see. That's to tell you that the players are very optimistic, in getting something in this particular one.
They had a high score in the first game, and the second game, it was very close, I must say. Meanwhile, Safety defeated Rima Queens 34-28 in yet another game in the handball Premier League here in Nigeria. Let's get to basketball proper now. And talking about basketball reminds me that River Supers will face AS Douanes of Senegal in one of the 4 seeding games in the playoff of the ongoing 2024 Basketball League in Africa, taking place in Kigali, or that will take place in Kigali just about 4 or 5 days from now. This seeding game takes place from the 24th to 25th, just 2 days. And remember, these two teams did meet themselves at the conference level, and now they will have to meet again. This will be game number 3 between these two sides.
Yeah, game number 3 between River Supers and AS Douanes of Senegal. River Supers actually won them in their first game, and they came back and won River Supers in the second game.
Not only.
And from what we've seen at this point in time, it's really going to be KG1, in the playoff this time, because AS Donner, I think they'll be coming very prepared, looking at the fact that they've tested the pattern of River Supers, and they'll be coming very much prepared this time around. So it promises to be an exciting one, promises to be an exciting game. And I think for River Supers, take a look at their performance, in the conference. They've done a lot, for themselves. I think about the 5 games they played, they were able to win 4 and lost 1. Was a very good record for them. No one gave them that, time, or no one gave them that opportunity to be able to go this far. Taking teams like AS Donner, beating teams like US Monastir, APR of Rwanda. There was no chance. No one gave them that opportunity, but they were able to go down there and surprise, everyone. And that's to say, it's a very huge statement, for River Supers at this point in time. We hope they will be able to continue this performance, in the playoff. For the AS Donner side, I think they're also a very strong side. Taking a look at how they played, in the conference group, and I think for me, if they actually up their game, it might be a very tight one for River Super. But I think the players now will be more energized. Talking about the River Supers players, the likes of V. Perry, Divine, A.K. John Wickens, Kevin Amayo. These are players that have actually lived up to expectations so far for River Super. And I think this time they'll be more energized, of course, to do more, because the motivation behind this River Super side is very much, and that's why we're seeing them, of course, doing this exploit in the Basketball African League.
Talking about the seeding game, we'll have the other one coming up between US Monastir against Petro de Luanda, and that is winner of this one will have to take on the loser of the game against Nigeria, and it promises to be very tough. But talking about River Supers and the AS Douanes, it was the buzzer that saved Douanes got them that win in the second game at the Savannah Conference. Meanwhile, at the Kalala Conference, we have AS Robert in the second tie against the 9 conference champions Ahali of Egypt, who topped the overall standing. Ahali of Egypt, no doubt, a class of its own in the basketball league in Africa.
Yeah, a very huge class, of course. You will see Ahali of Egypt, and they've done a lot. They've actually gotten much better when it has to do with the Basketball African League, and if you take a look at it, and I think they actually topped their group as well. They were, they topped their group.
They came first so far.
They came first in their group
overall.
And that's to tell you how high class they are at this point in time. And for me, I think take a look at the teams around. It will actually take a lot for any team, of course, to stop them this time around. So we'll just look forward to see how far they'll be able to go at this point in time. But it will definitely get tough or tougher for Rivers Hoopers, because their next game, if they get past AS Donner, will be against US Monastir or Petro de Luanda. So the higher they go, the tougher it is for them. So they really have to up their game, and possibly never can tell. Will they go all the way down to the final? We'll just see what comes up for them. But for Ahali, I think taking a look at their performance in the group stage, for me, it will be difficult for any team to stop them.
Ahali of Egypt showing their class at the ongoing qualification games at the Basketball League in Africa. Overall, 8 teams. They are first of the 8 teams that are still left at the Basketball League in Africa. Meanwhile, River Supers did return back to Nigeria after their excellent performance in Dakar, Senegal, but they are presently camped in Lagos, preparatory for another journey to Kigali, venue of the playoffs or the quarterfinal of the seeding games.
Yeah,
this weekend.
Yeah, let's see how it goes for them. It's good, of course. I think they have to actually base there in Lagos. Before they went down to Senegal, they had their final training section in Lagos before they went to Senegal. And now camping in Lagos as well, I think is a good one. It will be a favorite ground. They have a very good, camp down there. They have a very good basketball course down there for them to train. For the players, of course, to get themselves familiarized as well once more and get that synergy, because at this point in time, this is where it actually gets very, very tough. They have to come up with their best, their very best. In fact, if they have anything they left in the group stage, this is where they have to bring it on to see how they can get past AS Donner's first, in the first game, or else, it might be an abysmal one. But so far, so good. Everyone will actually say it has been an impressive ride for River Supers. But getting to the playoff after putting a whole lot, after investing a whole lot in the team, those players, the likes of V. Perry, Kevin Amayo, Divine, A.K. John Wickens, they cost the state, a whole lot to get them. So everyone will hope that getting to the playoff is not actually enough. You should be able to go far, maybe getting to the finals at least. That would be so satisfactory to Nigerians, taking a look at the way they perform so far. So for me, I think they should do all they can. Company Lagos, good one. They have the best of facilities down there to get themselves prepared, and before they head down to play the playoff game. And I think for me, it would be a very huge one at this point in time. Let's just see how far they'll be able to go in the playoff this time around.
Let's see how far they will be able to go in the playoff this time around, and that promises to be very thrilling because, yes, they've made history of getting to the playoff for the first time, the first Nigerian team to get to the playoff, but they have the capacity to move all the way to the very finals. And talking about capacity, they have 5 foreign players injected into the squad, courtesy of the Rivers State government sponsorship, and these players are distinguishing themselves so far at the competition. We want to see them move to the very finals coming up in Kigali. Meanwhile, there's still some action in basketball in the semi-finals of the conference in the NBA. Kingsley, it's getting very interesting. Denver Nuggets and Timberwolves are now tied at 3-3. 1 game to go, and they know who moves to the final. In the game we saw in the last few hours, 70 points was scored by Nuggets as compared to 115 points scored by Timberwolves. What a class difference by Wolves there. Wolves showed that Denver Nuggets, defending champions no doubt, but had no respect for who they was defending.
Wow, what a very high margin you see. 115 to 70. I never saw that coming at all. You take a look at the way the game has been. It's been so cagey. Timberwolves started leading. They were leading 2-0 before the Denver Nuggets, of course, came back to make it 2-2. The Denver Nuggets went ahead as well to make it 3-2. And now the Wolves came back, making it 3-3 at this point in time. This is very, very cagey, and it has actually gone down to the wire. The next encounter will be very, very tight at this point in time. And I think
the last encounter between the two of them is the final match to say.
No, I'm telling you, it's going to be a very, very tight one. And I think for me, the Wolves will be coming out once again to devour the Denver Nuggets, side at this point in time. They've really done a whole lot, for themselves. Talking about Timberwolves, of nobody giving them the opportunity to be able to challenge Denver Nuggets, in this particular manner. But they've actually shown that doggedness and being able to put up this impressive performance. We must give kudos to them for taking up the challenge, up to this level. And I must also give kudos to some of the players who's been very fantastic. The likes of Anthony Edwards. He's been the man taking this Timberwolves side all the way. He had about 27 points, of course, in the last game. He's been so fantastic. In the first and the second game, he was very fantastic as well for the Timberwolves, even in the third encounter as well. So I think Anthony Edwards has been very, very fantastic, for them. Jordan Adonis as well, who also came up with about 27 points in that encounter. Is another man we should also give kudos in that, Timberwolves side. Impressive performance we've seen. But for the Nuggets, they are also, very fantastic. We must give it up to them. But in this particular series, we've not seen that champion spirit in the Denver Nuggets. We expect them, of course, to be leading, but Timberwolves were leading. They have to put up a comeback, to take up the lead. And now the game has been
talking
level.
about Timberwolves leading in the first quarter, it was a whooping 39-14 or so. Then in the fourth quarter, it was 39-9. What a difference! So they had over 30 points difference in the fourth quarter, and just about the same in the first quarter as well. So the first and the last quarter of the fixture was very, very horrible
very
for
horrible.
Denver Nuggets.
Very, very horrible. 31-14 in the first quarter, 29-9 in the first quarter was very, very horrible. I think in the last quarter, the Denver Nuggets, lost their own. They lost their mojo. The best, of course, you could say. Nikola Jokic was not the man, of course, we normally see. Came up with 22 points, but you expected Nikola Jokic on this kind of encounter, on a day like this, should be able to amass, more points. But he wasn't actually at his best, in that particular encounter as well. Like Aaron Gordon as well was also very fantastic, 12 points. So Jamal Murray as well, didn't even come to the party. Just 10 points, in this particular encounter. That's to tell you that, Denver Nuggets really have to do a lot if they want to get, if they want to get this one done and dusted in the next encounter. Or else, from this momentum, from this progress we're seeing from the Timberwolves side, I think it might be a very tough one for them if they don't step up their game in the last game.
Let's go to see the semi-final pairing in the Eastern Conference, and in the early hours of tomorrow morning, just a few hours from now, we will see Indiana Pacers up against New York Knicks. The Knicks from New York has been showing their quality so far this year's NBA semi-final conference. Let's see who gets it. Will it be Indiana Pacers or it will be the Knicks from New York?
It's going to be a very tight one as well from what we've seen at this point in time. New York Knicks leading already in that particular one. From what we've seen, they've been so fantastic against the Indiana Pacers in this one. The likes of Joe Hart, you talk about the likes of Jalen Brunson for the New York Knicks side. These are players that have been living up to expectation. Jalen Brunson got about 44 points, in the last game, and that actually took the Knicks, ahead in that particular encounter. And for what we've seen at this point in time, I think the Knicks are very much ready. For the Indiana Pacers as well, you can also take them away from the picture. We can possibly see them putting up an impressive performance and putting up, staging up, a comeback in this particular one. They've been very, very fantastic so far, but it promises to be a cagey one, and we'll see who, of course, will get the victory at the end of the day. Well,
it's in the early hours of tomorrow morning here in Nigeria at about 1:30 a.m. Out there in the afternoon in New York. We'll see who gets it. Meanwhile, let's go to tennis. And talking about tennis, we're looking at the local tennis here, where the federation here in Nigeria has offered to put up a 10-year goal plan, especially in the African Tennis Championship. Is this possible? We've seen a situation where it looks like Nigeria, after a good representation way back in the 1988, have had to struggle in tennis.
Yeah, I think for me, coming up with this plan, I think maybe it will go a long way in helping table tennis down here in Nigeria. Yesterday, the coach for the Table Tennis Federation talked about Terola. He came up to say that he has actually set targets to discover talents, in country, table tennis talents in the country. But from what we've seen at this point in time, I think it's going to actually take a long way. Because the Table Tennis Federation, they've not stepped up, just like you mentioned, way back. We normally see them, living up to expectation. That's where, players like Karuna Quadri, was discovered. Even Torola, the coach of the team now, the coach of the federation, was once a player.
That was way back in the 80s.
Yeah, way back in the 80s as well. So I think for me, coming up with this 10-year plan will go a long way to see if they can discover talent. We'll be talking about the lives of Karuna Quadri very soon. Of course, he might be fitting off. Fatima Bello. You talk about Funke Shonaike, of course, is not even in the scene anymore at this point in time. You talk about Effiong Edem as well. These are players that are there, but they've not really hit the nail. They've not really done something very remarkable for over time now. There's only Aruna Quadri who just won the ITTF title of recent. That was a day before as sustained. But we should be able to get more players that could actually take up the scene at this point in time. I know we have a certain Kuti who is actually coming up, but what are the Table Tennis Federation, what have they done to see how they can groom these talents as well? So for me, this 10-year plan, maybe it will go a long way in trying to strengthen table tennis once again in the country.
Well, we'll get to the very final of tennis and we'll return for the break where we'll take a look at the Rome Open. A lot has happened. Iga Swiatek has shown class, so to say, and all other results coming through at the Rome Open. When we return from the break, stay with us.
From the line across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring on sport news, live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, socio-economy, sports, and documentaries. So catch all the updates on the happenings around the globe. Stay focused on the fact today, only on ATN.
people into the country illegally. That is amazing.
Honorable
You human
On the point of order.
Honorable
You are a human
On the point.
on them. They are not picking our calls. They made up their minds.
So no agreement with the EU, but
Everybody, and I belong to nobody.
Agent.
From the line across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring on sport news, live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, socio-economy, sports, and documentaries. So catch all the updates on the globe today on ATN.
Lap of the program. Kingsley Manuel is still here, and a lot is going down in the world of sports. I've told you about basketball, where S1S of Senegal. It promises to be thrilling. The both sides met before twice, and it was 1-1 apiece. This is a decider at the quarterfinals of this year's basketball league. So a lot is expected from the Kingsmen from Rivers State, Nigeria. Let's now bring you some of the rest part of the bulletin. And Kingsley, talking about tennis, reminds me that the Italian Open is into the final, especially for the female. Iga Swiatek didn't have Messi at all for Coco Gauff. It was 6-4, 6-3 in the semi-final, qualifying the world number one to be in the final after his peak performance.
Yeah, impressive performance, you would say, for Iga Swiatek. It's been an impressive one for her right from the Madrid Open, where she won. And now, of course, she's, looking forward to win a back-to-back title, talking about the Madrid Open, and as well as the Italian Open at this point in time. It's been a rosy one for her. I think she's, started to prove that, of course, she has what it takes to maintain that world number one position. Impressive ride, so far in the Italian Open. We saw her taking out Pointseva in the first game, Pera in the second as well, Madison Keys in the third game, and she was able to take out Angelique Kerber as well in the fourth game, and down to the semi-final where she hosted out Coco Gauff. For me, has been an impressive ride. Coco Gauff as well, actually tried, but her best, of course, was not good enough for Iga Swiatek. That been very, very fantastic since the Madrid Open, and we're looking forward to see another interesting Italian Open final, a repeat of what we saw in the Madrid Open, where Iga Swiatek could be locking horns with Aryna Sabalenka. We're looking forward to see if Aryna Sabalenka this time will be taking up the revenge, because last time it was Iga Swiatek who took a revenge in the Madrid Open. Can Aryna Sabalenka put up a revenge this time around in the Italian Open? We'll see how that one will go.
Aryna Sabalenka actually on the night beat American Daniel Collins 7-5, 6-2 to qualify for the final, and like you heard there, Iga Swiatek is waiting already for her, and the both of them, world number one against world number two, an interesting final coming up at the Italian Open in the next few hours from now. A lot was expected from Coco Gauff. She didn't bring that to the table, and Daniela Collins, two Americans outside on at the semi-final stage of the Italian Open.
Also sad, I think the Americans have not really gotten the mojo for a very long time now. We've seen Coco Gauff, ever since she won her first Grand Slam was last year. She's not been that fantastic. Daniel Collins as well. Yes, we've seen her a little bit of progress, from her this time, but I think that consistency, she has lacked that one as well. Jessica Pegula is another American as well, which everyone thought, of course, will probably live up to expectation. She's actually stayed in the top 5 for a very long time, and she has not been able to prove herself. So for me, I think the American WTA players really have to step up their game. They really have to put up a very impressive performance, to challenge the names like Iga Swiatek, Arina Sabalenka, and the rest of them.
Well, females are doing so well. World number 1, world number 2. We saw them just about 2 weeks ago, where it was in the final. I think that was in Madrid. But we are getting into the semi-final as well. The qualifiers.
Yes, it's been an impressive ride down there. We're seeing a certain Chilean, talking about Nicolas Jarry. He's just coming off rank number 18, putting up an impressive performance. He was able to oust out, Stefano Tsitsipas in the game. It ended in 3-6, 7-5, 6-4.
Unknown player.
But he's actually number 1 in Chile, number 1 tennis player in Chile, and being ranked 18 at this point in time. We'll see him coming up with such an impressive performance this time around. And I think for me, we should watch out for him. He might probably put up an upset, going forward in this one. Looking at the fact that defending champion Daniil Medvedev, of course, has been ousted out in this one, we might possibly give Nicolas Jarry some chance at this point.
Waiting for this weekend action in Saudi Arabia. Tyson Fury up against Ukrainian challenger Alexander Usyk. This fight it's taking it long to put together. Eventually, it's now down to a few hours from now.
Yeah, down to a few hours from now, but we're going to be seeing another interesting boxing bout, in Saudi Arabia once again. A long-awaited bout, of course, you would say at this point in time. And for me, I think boxers are ready. It's been a very tough week. Even the press conference, both fighters, of course, they've been talking tough. Even the fighter of Tyson Fury have to be beating blue-black, in one of the press conference at this point in time. That's to tell you how intense, this particular one, of course, will be. A whole lot, is at stake at this point in time, because we're going to be seeing the 4 belts, being put in place. It's going to be the first time, of course, we're going to be seeing the 4 belts, at this point in time being at stake, for a bout like this. So it's going to be
about the 4 belts. We have the WBO, that's the World Boxing Association title belt. Yeah. There is the World Boxing Council title belt as well. We have the International Boxing Federation belt, and then there's the World Boxing Association belt. All of 4 at stake. Who will be having this around his neck at the end of the day?
It's going to be a very tight one, like I mentioned. Tyson Fury, who has in about over 30 games now. The man has actually recorded 34 wins.
Tyson Fury undefeated.
Undefeated. He has recorded 34 wins. He has actually gotten 24 knockouts, and the man has not been defeated.
There's something about this undefeated stuff. Where we have undefeated Tyson Fury, we equally have an undefeated Usyk as well on the other side. If you remember, Usyk has been undefeated clearly in the international boxing.
So well for himself, and 21 wins, 14 knockouts for Usyk is actually a very impressive record for him.
In this fight, something interesting for me, Tyson Fury is bringing the World Boxing Council belt to the table. Yeah. Of course, everybody knows the World Boxing Council is the biggest of all the other belts, but Alexander Usyk is bringing 3 belts to the table. He's bringing the International Boxing Federation and World Boxing Association belt to the table, as well. Not forgetting the International Boxing Federation belt. And so all 3 belts are coming from Usyk. So, which one will you prefer? 1 or 3? But in this instance, all 4 are on the table. One person could just grab all 4.
I'm telling you. So it's going to be a very tough one. And for what we're seeing, preparation ahead of this one, it seems as if Usyk is very much confident, going into this one.
We've never seen a situation where 4 belts are on the...
And I fear for Tyson Fury, because the man has not really been on a very top-notch, position. The last time this bout wanted to be held, we heard he had an injury on his head and he has to suspend the bout. And coming down to this one at this point in time, from what we're seeing, his body language is saying that he's not well prepared. That even though he lost this one, that nobody should see him, as being defeated and all of that. But I think for me, Tyson Fury should man up enough. Should be able to man the ring and see what he can be able to do against Usyk. We saw what Francis Ngannou did to him in his last bouts. We saw that heavy punch that actually, took him out of that particular one. And that's to tell you that, Tyson Fury really have to be very careful going into this bout, against Alexander Usyk. We saw what Usyk did in the game against, in the bout against Anthony Joshua, back-to-back, defeats. That was a very masterclass performance, of course, from Usyk. So at this point in time, putting up these 4 belts, very, very huge risks, if you ask me, from Tyson Fury, putting up putting up his belt as well. Usyk coming up with 3 belts, understandably, but Tyson Fury, I think for me, he has a lot to lose if he doesn't get this one done and dusted.
Talking about Tyson Fury, undefeated heavyweight, middleweight boxer there. He look at it. He never lost again. He's had only 1 draw, in 34 matches, and he's won 21 of them via knockout. Do you see this one maybe go the way of one of his knockout history?
I don't think so. I don't think so, because Usyk is not kind of a boxer you easily knock out. Yes, it's not kind of a boxer you easily knock out. Usyk has the balance. He has the punching power a bit. We know that, yes, Fury has the punching power, but I think for me, Usyk, of course, has the balance. He has the punching power. One thing about Usyk, of course, he has the ability to be able to, put up the dodge. We don't know much about him when it has to do with uppercut sports. For what we've seen at this point in time, he has the balance, he has the tactics, he has the strategy, and that was what he was able to use to defeat, Anthony Joshua in the 2 bouts. Of course, we saw him against Anthony Joshua. So for me, I think Fury have to be very, very careful going to this one. It might not be business as usual, for him against Alexander Usyk, because the man is also coming very much, prepared. So for me, I think he should maybe look forward to see whatever tactics that will be good for him.